If you're someone who struggles with getting pinned and you can't find a way out, you use all your energy and you end up gassed out with your opponent still on top, whether it be mount, side control, whatever it is, this video is for you. I'm gonna show you simple and effective techniques to solve this problem, and no, it's not the trap and roll, okay? These are techniques that have worked for me since I've been a white belt, and they are still a part of my bread and butter game 9 years later as a brown belt. Let's jump in. I've been doing Jiu Jitsu for a decent amount of time, and in this time, I can say with absolute confidence that 99.9% of the time, most new people and white belts really struggle to solve pins. They use all their energy, they become explosive in all the wrong ways, only to be stuck on bottom with no energy. And sometimes I've even seen people tap from this, which is an easy problem to solve, truthfully. So we're gonna jump right into it with our side control sweep number 1. As you can see in this example, my opponent takes her position in side control. What I wanna do here is take my south side arm, which is the arm that's closer to her feet. This arm is framed into her hips. What I'm going to do is remove my frame and collapse my arm next to her knee. My next step is then to slightly lift my hips off the ground, and then using my leg muscles, I'm going to push my hips into her backside leg until both of her legs are touching at the knees. What I've done here is effectively made her unstable. It's very hard for her to hold her base when her knees are together. Now, once her legs are together, my arm that originally trapped her other leg will reach across. I'm gonna grab her far side hamstring. I'm essentially ensuring that her legs cannot pop back open at this point. Now, once I have this position set, I'm good to go. I'm gonna take my other arm and I'm gonna chop into her neck. At the same time I'm doing that, I'm going to bridge and jump over her body. As you can see here, I almost float over her body into a dominant position. I end in side control with her on bottom. Now, the beautiful thing about this escape is that it takes almost no strength. It's purely technique. The only part that will take some athleticism will be when you push off your legs to roll over your own back, which ultimately lands you on top of her in side control. And all things considered, it's not necessarily that athletic of a move because her knees are pinned together. She has no base. It's very easy to jump over and roll over your own back, landing yourself in a dominant position. I learned this one very early on, and I can't tell you how many times it saved my butt from someone with excellent top pressure. This is really great against wrestlers. It'll save you a lot of energy and it'll get you back to a dominant position. If you're not trying it yet, I highly recommend you start. And I just want to take a quick break to give my sponsors, X Martial, a shout out. Not only does X Martial have the highest quality no-gi gear for adults and kids on the market, they also provide workout equipment and training tools, everything from resistance bands to grip work to abdominal work. You name it, they got it. On top of all that, they also have the X Martial Charity Initiative, where they help bullied or underprivileged people get help with their training fees and free gear. You're not gonna find a higher quality company out there. So if you wanna look as good as me and probably even better, get over to xmartial.com, use my code IRONWILL to save yourself some money, and look good while you sharpen your skills. All right, well, I think that covers it. Let's get back to the video. Side control escape number 2. Now, this one's been part of my bread and butter for a long time. It was effective right out of the gate. It's pretty easy to learn as long as you're doing the technique correctly. It's pretty hard to mess up. So as you can see here in this example, my opponent takes her position in side control. What I want to do with my north side hand is collapse my elbow on top of her head, forcing her head and face down towards the mat. What's happening when I do this is I'm putting a bend in her cervical spine. We've talked about this before, where if we put a bend in our opponent's spine, we overall make them weaker as a whole. This is human physiology. This is why we need a straight spine when we squat or deadlift. We're very strong when our spines are straight and aligned. We are not very strong when we're crumpled up or bent or twisted. So something to consider here. You can see this as a concept all over jiu-jitsu, but for now we're focusing on the neck. So once I have her head and neck collapsed down so that I have a bend in her cervical spine, I'm going to place my south side arm framed into her hip. Now, once I have my frame set and I have her arm tucked, all I need to do is bridge towards the arm that's tucked. Now, if you consider your body like a clock, your head being 12 o'clock, your feet being 6, You're not bridging directly left or right to 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock. I want you to think about bridging diagonally, more so 10 or 11 o'clock or 1 or 2 o'clock, depending on what direction you go. If you try to go to 9 or 3 o'clock, you will very much have to use strength, and it's going to be difficult. It's going to gas you. It's going to tax your gas tank, essentially, which is not what we want. If you go diagonally, it takes much less energy and force, and it's faster. So as you can see here, the position is set. Once I'm set, all I need to do is bridge diagonally and follow her body over. It looks like a brute force move, but I promise you it's not, especially once you start doing it correctly. Now, the tendency to want to bridge to 9 or 3 o'clock, as we discussed, typically happens when people first learn this move. If you can get it in your head that you need to bridge diagonally, this will become very easy very quickly. And again, just like the first one, this has saved my butt countless times, especially from people who've got great top pressure, really high level wrestlers, or really anybody that's just good on top. This will save your butt just like it saved mine. If you're not trying it yet, definitely add it to your list. All right, for our number 3 escape, we're talking about escaping the mount. And I know everybody covers all the variations of trap and roll, and you've probably seen those all yourself. If you've been into jiu-jitsu for 6 months, you've probably seen almost every single variation of the trap and roll. That's not what we're gonna cover. I wanna give you something else that can be just as usable, if not more usable than the trap and roll. So before I start to dissect this escape, I want you to understand a concept that's happening here. When your opponent is in mount and they're sitting straight up, all of their weight is aligned above and into your hips, making the hip region very heavy. Now, there are escapes from this position, but what I really want to do is to push her weight forward to make her hips light. And I do that by driving a knee into her back as I bridge up slightly. As you see, when I do this, it pushes her weight forward and she has to put her hands out in front of her to catch herself. Otherwise, she's going face first into the mat or the ground. Once she's leaning forward like this, her hips are much lighter and much more manageable for me to utilize an escape. So if you pay close attention, as I'm bridging her forward, you'll see me put my fists into her hip bones. Now, some instructors will show putting your palms into their hips, but I like to make a fist because it gives me an extra couple inches of length, which you'll see will come in handy. So now that I have her weight forward and my fists set into her hip bones, the next portion of this is to bridge up. I'm not benching her up in the air, okay? I'm not benching her up in the air. I want to be effective with my energy. So I'm doing a hip thrust to bring her weight up. And then as her weight is up, I'm extending my arms as I drop my hips away, almost using one to replace the other. Now, for a very split second, there will be a window of opportunity as I drop my hips and I extend my arms. And that opportunity presents a doorway for me to bring my knee up and through between her legs. As my shin comes up and through, it's very easy for me to sit up and utilize that leg to push her weight away from me. And depending on what your opponent does to address this, it can create an opportunity for a leg lock. So as you can see here, as I push her away, her right foot drags on the mat slightly, which pulls that leg out in the open for me, making it very easy to snatch that up. And I can either go straight ankle lock or I can go heel hook. Now, we're not necessarily teaching that right now, but I want you to know that that opportunity is there. I would say that most of the time when I perform this escape, my opponents leave their feet up so that their legs aren't easily isolated in the process, but just know that it's there for you and it's something to pay attention to. A big mistake that people try to do with this one is that they try to bench the hips up and away. I'm not bench pressing anything. I'm letting my strong hip muscles do all the work. And then as my hips drop away, I use that as an opportunity to replace that positioning with my arms. So by the time I do get my arms locked out, my hips did all the work for me. My hips put her body in place. They dropped out of the way so that my arms could extend and replace that structure. So if you start practicing this one, or maybe you are already doing it, it's really important that you're not trying to bench press anyone away from you. Okay, that's not what we want. It's definitely all in the hips and it makes a huge difference. Here's the thing, you want to be able to get through this movement and still have energy in the gas tank. If you are somehow able to bench press someone off of you and able to get into this position without using your hips, you're going to be using a lot more energy than necessary. And jiu-jitsu is very much chess, not only with body parts, but energy expenditure. A lot of the top level guys are energy expenditure geniuses, right? A really great example of this is Marcelo Garcia. If you would look at him and you didn't know anything about him, he wouldn't come off as an intimidating figure, right? But he's so good, not only with positioning and technique and all of that stuff, but his energy expenditure. He's so efficient with his technique that he doesn't waste a lot of energy. That's the last thing you want to do, is waste energy. So definitely utilize your hips where you can. And I think that if you start working this one, you're going to see how valuable it is. Now, there's tons of ways to solve a pin, to escape a pin. These are just 3 ways that are simple, effective, and that I really enjoy, that have worked well for me, especially early on in my career as a jiu-jitsu practitioner. So I hope that they can work for you. If you have other pin escapes that you like, drop them in the comments. I always like to remind you guys, I'm not the only teacher here, and your knowledge helps everyone. And I always appreciate you guys. With that being said, you guys know how we like to end them. Sometimes backwards, always forwards. I'll see you in the next one.